Working over 40 hours a week, caring for the disabled as a social service aide for ARCO, Shalandra White is stretched thin.
I no longer have my home. I couldn't afford the rent, and I got evicted.
She's just one of the many faces of United Way's Alice. Asset limited, income constrained, employed. In Northeast Louisiana alone, 57% of households are Alice or below. That means they work but live paycheck to paycheck with little to no money left over at the end of the month. Right here in Ouachita Parish, 58% of households are Alice or below. And that's compared to other parishes like East Carroll, where 75% of households are at the Alice threshold. After the death of her mother, Shalandra lost her security blanket and says that's when her struggles really began.
That's the number one thing that you always hear. How you doing so bad? You got a job. Just because I have a job don't mean I'm doing good.
Nearly 30% of the nation lives in poverty. In Northeast Louisiana, that number is 20%. Shalandra says she's always had a job, but any emergency could send her spiraling below poverty, forcing her to make life-altering decisions.
It was either pay the rent or pay the utilities.
Good morning, OIC.
In the heart of Monroe's East Side sits the Opportunities Industrialization Center of Ouachita, helping bridge the gap for people looking for a way out of a bad situation.
I lived in public housing, and at the time I wasn't working.
40-year-old Maisha Gatson has always lived in government-assisted housing.
I lived in Lewis Lock, and then I moved to the Section 8 program with my mom. So I'm a product of public housing.
She came to OIC 12 years ago, and the rest is history.
I've always wanted to go to school, but didn't want to leave my children all day. So with OIC hours from 8 to 12, it was perfect.
Gatson first came to OIC looking to enter the workforce and better herself as a mother and woman. Now she's a manager here at Berg-Jones Lane Plaza, working towards moving out of public housing and purchasing her very first home.
Domestic violence can happen to anyone, but those living at or below the Alice level are at a greater risk. Of the 907 adult victims of domestic violence in Northeast Louisiana who the Wellspring provided services to in 2018, 748, or 82%, came from a household with an income of less than $16,000. The Wellspring is working to lower that number.
What we do is we help an individual that's leaving a domestic violence situation to rebuild their lives. We give them hope, we give them safety, we give them security.
And their impact is already being felt.
We save lives, actually. We have seen a reduction in our homicide rate here for victims, female victims killed by males.
The Wellspring offers a number of free services for individuals dealing with domestic abuse.
Maybe it's something like just needing emergency shelter, or maybe it's like needing ongoing counseling after they've ended the violent relationship. If someone is in an abusive situation, to reach out for services and let them know that our services are confidential and that we're here for them to help them in that violent situation and, no longer be abused.
Constantly working but still struggling to make ends meet.
This is somebody who goes to work every single day and still can't cover expenses.
There are more than 127,000 households in Northeast Louisiana, and more than 72,000 of them are living below the Alice, asset limited, income constrained, employed threshold, meaning they're one emergency away from a financial crisis. So where do these families turn?
Things like food stamps and housing assistance and Medicaid.
Giving many taxpayers who help pay for these type of government assistance programs a belief that those getting the benefits really don't need or deserve them.
The poor that are mooching off the system while the rest of us pay our way and their way.
Oh, these people are just taking advantage of handouts.
But experts say that's far from the truth.
If we want to hold on to that myth, we can only do it by ignoring the reality that Alice has now put right in front of us.
United Way's Alice report shows real data of what the daily lives are like for those living in economic distress. More than 31,000 households in Ouachita Parish are struggling to afford the cost of living in the Pelican State.
A whole lot of people who work very hard to try to make ends meet, but are in a position of having to make choices, not because of any lack of effort on their part.
We all know Alice families and Alice households.